Well, this is a video I've been trying to get made for quite a while, but hopefully this is going to be the time I actually get it done. So, for those of you who don't know, I will be reviewing the Dragon Ball Super arc, the Battle of Gods Saga. So, this is the first saga of the new Dragon Ball series, Dragon Ball Super, and it is basically an adaptation of the Battle of Gods movie, which came out in 2013, and it really helped revitalize interest in the Dragon Ball franchise. It had Akira Toriyama, the original series creator, writing the script. Not from the start, of course. He actually came in later on because he wanted to sort of jump back into the franchise after Dragon Ball Evolution sucked. And Battle of Gods was the result of it, and because of its success, we got Resurrection F, we've got Dragon Ball Super, and that's kind of the reason why 2015 is called like the year Dragon Ball sort of came back with a vengeance by a lot of fans. And I was really skeptical about the whole idea of adapting the movies, mostly because the movies are too new and they're kind of too big of a deal to adapt so quickly. Like I said, Battle of Gods really helped revitalize the franchise, and it seems really weird to do a super extended cut of it, especially because a regular extended cut came out. It was released even in North America in a limited theatrical release back in November of 2014. So, in a lot of people's minds, Battle of Gods was still really, really fresh. And then you have Resurrection F, which came out 9 months ago. And so you have this weird situation where they're adapting the movies that are so new and so recent that there just doesn't really seem a point to it. But I try to put my skepticism aside and try to enjoy the arc for what it is. And the arc itself is really mediocre, I have to say. Like, it's not completely bad. There are some really good things in it, but then it does a lot of things poorly that the movie did a lot better. And it really misses kind of the point of the movie. And I think that trying to adapt Battle of Gods as it is would not work. Because Battle of Gods is, in my opinion, a subversion of all the other Dragon Ball Z movies that came out in the 90s. You know, the ones where they start out with everybody enjoying their peaceful time on Earth, then some random alien dude shows up, fucks shit up, and then Goku and everybody else fight him. They get beaten up a little, and then Goku wins at the end. That's kind of the formula for most of the 90s Toei movies. And Battle of Gods went out of its way to subvert a lot of those tropes. The alien dude who shows up is not evil. He's kind of like Galactus, in the way that his job is to destroy planets to preserve the balance of the universe. He's not evil, he's not good, he is neutral. He is truly a neutral character, and that already by itself makes him an interesting antagonist for Goku to fight, because all of other Dragon Ball Z's villains, quote-unquote, are all unapologetically evil or destructive forces of nature. This guy is a destructive force of nature, but not because he wants, not because, he just likes to blow shit up, even though this arc implies that there is some of that there. He's just an old being who has existed for a very long time, and his job is crucial to the survival of the universe. And he's not a bad guy Goku could just kill and then go back to training. If he ever did kill him for whatever reason, that would cause serious and far-reaching ramifications for the Dragon Ball universe. And that in and of itself was already unique. And then it was also unique in the fact that Vegeta, who always gets, the badass intros in the movies, doesn't really get much of one here, and he spends most of the movie playing the clown as a way to start up the theme of pride and what does pride mean and how does pride affect you and your personality and the way you deal with things, which later is a lot of what makes Goku versus Beerus in the movie so interesting, because every line of dialogue spoken during that fight means something. It's not just stupid, oh, now I'm going to power up even more. No, I'm going to show you even more of my power, and then a bunch of screaming and shit. Like, there is none of that. Like, a lot of the Z tropes, like the constant powering up and the screaming and the powering up again, was really averted in Battle of Gods. And every piece of dialogue, like I said, during that battle meant something. It gave Goku more personality. It gave Beerus an interesting dynamic with Goku. Even though he's kind of doing the Popo thing from the end of Dragon Ball, it still makes sense for Goku's character. And like I said, the movie really went out of its way to subvert a lot of the tropes that we got used to with the other Z films, and that's kind of what its greatest strength is for me. And that's kind of why I was really excited for the new material, because I thought we were going to be getting a Dragon Ball that still feels like Dragon Ball, but that's going to be a little bit smarter with the way it does things. It's going to be a little bit more self-aware, a little bit more subversive, and basically what Battle of Gods was. And so far, the new material hasn't really done that. I mean, Resurrection F is every generic 90s Toei movie that just has Toriyama's script, quote-unquote. It has some funny interactions and pretty great fight scenes, but it's still really generic, and that's kind of why I really hated that movie, because Battle of Gods subverted a lot of those tropes, and you could subvert even more tropes with the Frieza resurrection thing, because every time Frieza came back, he's a fucking joke, like he just gets taken out. And so, with this kind of whole situation, you have Dragon Ball Super adapting the movies. And I really feel like you can't really do a subversion of the movies in TV format, and that's why I said a while back why Battle of Gods can't just be, copy-pasted with some changes here and there. Like, I think you need to be smarter in the way that you could do it. And I think that since Dragon Ball Z tropes are so iconic, I think you could have really done an arc here that really kind of pokes fun at, the tropes and tries to subvert them a lot. Instead, kind of like Resurrection F, a lot of the stuff from Z, a lot of the stuff that was really annoying in Z, looking back at it, is still here, and it's played completely straight. The first 2 episodes of this 14-episode arc have nothing to do with anything. Like, the first episode just is further proof of why Goku is kind of a selfish prick. And before any of you guys throw a hissy fit over that, Akira Toriyama himself considers Goku to be kind of a selfish dick. So, yeah, I'm not making that up out of my ass. The second episode has Vegeta, proving why he's a slightly better dad. And it isn't really until the third episode where things kick off. And the main problem with this saga is that it takes every key beat from Battle of Gods and stretches it far, far past the breaking point. For example, the notorious Episode 5. I'm not going to complain about the animation. There's no point. But the story of Episode 5 is that Beerus and Whis arrive on King Kai's planet, and Goku challenges him to a duel. In the movie, this lasts about 2 minutes. And those 2 minutes are really important because they set up Goku's arc for the rest of the film. He powers up to Super Saiyan 3, and then, with a cocky attitude about him, he asks Beerus if he thinks 3 is too much for him, and he'll happily dial back to 2. It sets up Goku's arrogance. This idea that Goku has let his victories and his successes go to his head, and Beerus is going to be the guy to bring him down to earth. There is none of that in the film, and that immediately makes it considerably less interesting, because you're taking something that really made the last movie, and you're cutting it out completely. Like, there is none of that. Like, there is no talk about Goku's arrogance. The roles between the characters are completely reversed, in that in the movie, Goku is the one who humbles himself and finally treats Beerus with the respect that he deserves. In this, Goku's kind of being like a pig-headed asshole, and then Beerus is the guy who respects him. I personally found the movie version a lot more interesting because it actually, like I said, shows more personality and depth to Goku, who's kind of become the archetype for every loudmouth shonen hero out there, and that is completely cut out of the film. And Episode 5, like I said, takes a small bit that sets up the roles of the characters, and it just kind of butchers it, because Goku goes Super Saiyan 1, and then he just attacks Beerus, and then nothing happens. Goes Super Saiyan 2, nothing happens. Super Saiyan 3, he gets the shit kicked out of him. This is a 2-minute bit from the movie that is stretched into an entire episode. And it's not that like they even do anything interesting with the techniques. Like, it's just Goku punch, 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 a couple of blasts, and Beerus just keeps dodging him until he finally kicks his ass at the end. And that's really boring to watch for 20 consecutive episodes. And then the arc kind of escapes this for a little bit, and then it dies. It just dies. Like Oolong versus Beerus, which was another small bit in the movie, which wasn't that particularly funny for me, where Oolong has to play rock, paper, scissors with Beerus to determine the fate of the planet. Like, Beerus is like, if you win this rock, paper game of scissors, the fate of the Earth will be secured. Like, you're going to save the planet by playing rock, paper, scissors with the second most powerful dude in this universe. and it's not overtly funny, but it is kind of an entertaining bit in the movie. And then they make an entire episode about that for 20 minutes. And then even before that, another small bit in the movie that worked fine is everybody else going up against Beerus. And everybody else kind of has a proper way of fighting Beerus, I want to say. Like Piccolo gets taken out with the chopsticks. I know a lot of Piccolo fans hate that, but I actually like it because it shows a bit of different types of fighting. Tenshinhan gets kicked around, like Majin Buu gets smacked around, like Gohan getting beaten is a lot better in the movie than it is here. Here it's really humiliating. And then and in the show, it's just generic Z, repeat punching animation over and over and over again, and then Beerus just forces them back, and then more generic fighting, repeating animation. It just doesn't work. It's really taking a lot of the problems that Z had and it's playing them completely straight, and I'm going to address that later on. And then the fight between Goku and Beerus, like I said, is immediately far, far less interesting because they butcher the locales, and the character stuff, and then the character interaction between them is completely pointless. Like, every line of dialogue is, "You're amazing, Beerus-sama," and then Beerus says, "Oh, yeah, you're great too, Super Saiyan God." And that's every fucking piece of dialogue in that entire fight. The reason the fight is interesting in the movie is because it's short, it's sweet, it has diverse locations, which is a big problem Z had, and the dialogue that's being exchanged between the characters actually matters to something. Here it's just stupid posturing or stupid bullshit speak about power levels, and it really deflates a lot of the fight. And it also doesn't help that the fight itself repeats a lot of the same beats over and over again. Like, Beerus prepares a seemingly ultimate attack to destroy the planet, and then Goku has to, like, Kamehameha it away. This repeats several times. And then the very way the fight goes is really quite boring. Like, I'm going to say episode 11 did have a couple cool beats, like Beerus, hinting at that he might be the character who's going to get analyzed here more, which doesn't end up being the case, which is a big waste, because I think that adding Beerus' thing on top of Goku's arc would have been really, really great. There is some cool stuff like Beerus' molecule blasts, like him apparently overloading Goku with his own ki and then trying to blow him up. And and there is some smart usage of energy attacks, but there's also some stuff that feels like it shouldn't be here, or that shouldn't be used the way it is. Like, Goku and Beerus throw two attacks at each other, and then they combine somehow into an even bigger attack that Beerus tries to use to destroy the planet. Like, I don't know why this is happening. Like, this has never happened before. Like, when two energy blasts meet, they don't suddenly make a bigger energy blast that can be used by one or two parties involved. Like, when two blasts come at each other, they fucking come at each other, and then it's a struggle to see which one is superior. And there's another weird thing where Goku, like, gets hit by a big ball of Beerus' energy, and he just smashes it down, which was never done before, which is, it is a cool idea, but I feel like that's one of those things that's never going to be brought up again. And considering how the recent battle with Frieza has been going on, where there's been nothing like that, where there's been any weird or seemingly potentially interesting uses of ki attacks, it seems like that was just a cool idea that somebody came up with that's never going to be brought back again. But the worst part about the fight for me is the universe-destroying feat. Z did this too. I know that the Dragon Ball manga and Z are the same thing. Like, there is no Z manga. There is a Dragon Ball manga. But the context is the same thing. You have this new enemy, this new level of enemy who's going to introduce a whole bunch of other enemies of the same caliber. And during the first fight in Z between Goku and Vegeta, Vegeta is already capable of destroying a planet. And that is fucking terrible writing, because he is the introduction to a whole new level of combat. You don't use something that impressive for the introduction battle to the next stage of combat. You don't do that. That's really bad writing, and that's a lot of why later big statements about powers don't feel as impactful as they could have been, because you have, like Vegeta fires an attack on Namek, and Piccolo's like, oh man, he's going to destroy an entire planet. And then when Vegeta charges up the Final Flash, everyone's like, oh man, Vegeta's going to destroy the planet like it's some impressive thing, and it's not, because he could do it years ago when he was significantly weaker than he is now. And they did the same fucking thing here, where they used a feat where two gods fighting is enough to destroy the entire universe. That is not something you should use for the first battle. That is something you leave for at the very end or nearing the end, where the stakes are really high, where the new villain has shown himself and shit is getting serious. Like, that's when you have something that impressive happen. And it's especially problematic because every other fight after this is going to have Goku be even stronger and facing even stronger characters, and I can guarantee you the whole universe breaking thing is just not going to show up again. Like, even now, Goku and Frieza are a lot stronger than Goku was when he fought Beerus, and there's nothing happening yet. Like, they're just punching each other and there's nothing happening. It just feels like one of those things that the BOG arc specifically, for one reason or another, introduced, and then it's going to be dropped. Like, it's not going to come back again, or I'll be really surprised if it is. And it's really a stupid writing decision to use something that impressive this early on, because what the fuck else are you going to do after this? Like, oh, Goku's battle with whoever the fuck is the main villain is going to threaten the multiverse? Is that it? Like, I don't get it. It really feels stupid to waste something that impressive so early on, which is the same problem Z had. And I know that a lot of people, say that Z's fights were really stretched out and really boring. And they're right. Like, Z's fights are obnoxiously long, which is why Kai is vastly superior, because Kai cut out most of the ancillary bullshit that was pointless and just kept most of the core fighting intact, and it dramatically improved the pacing. The problem with Super stretching out the fights like it does is that Super is adapting a movie. And in the movie, the fights are intentionally made to be in short bursts, that every punch is supposed to mean something, that every attack is supposed to kind of look cool and, like I said, mean something. Here, there is, like I said, a lot of boring posturing. There's a lot of stupid power-up moments, especially the dragon thing, which was just, what the fuck was that? And it just really serves to highlight a lot of the problems with the arc, where the remake or retelling or whatever you're going to call this thing is just take the movie, throw all the interesting shit out, like the battle, like the Super Saiyan God backstory, the dynamic between Goku and Beerus, like the whole pride thing, the things that made the first movie. Just throw them out and then stretch out everything else that is completely superfluous and pointless. And that's kind of where we fall in. That's kind of like where Super is in its existence as of this recording. It's a really average show. It's a really mediocrely animated show where things constantly look wonky. Like the fights don't look engaging or impressive whatsoever. There are a couple of flashes of brilliance here and there, but this arc it pretty much shows you just why adapting the movies was a waste of fucking time, and why the show was rushed out the door. Like, there's a lot of wonky animation, there's a lot of really questionable writing decisions, and a lot of things that didn't need to be expanded upon are needlessly stretched out well past the breaking point. If I had to rank this, like, from 1 to 10 scale, I would say, like, this is like a 4 or 5. It's not completely redeemably awful. A lot of the stuff with Vegeta is interesting, and I kind of like the idea of presenting Beerus as more of a bad guy, because in the movie, everyone says he's like this feared being, but we never really see why he's feared, and then here we see kind of the darker aspects of Beerus' personality, how giving a man-child like this the power to annihilate an entire universe, and letting him do whatever he wants, more or less, is not really a good idea. So I did appreciate some stuff about the arc. It's just that stuff is heavily overshadowed by a lot of the ancillary and superfluous bullshit that didn't need to be here. The Resurrection F arc is not looking any better. In fact, it's infuriating me even more than the movie, but I'm going to get to that thing when it's finally over in the next, I think, 2 or 3 episodes. It's going to be finally over, and then I'm probably going to do a review on it there. So yeah, the Battle of Gods Saga. It's average. It's not the best thing ever. I would highly recommend that if you want to see this story arc, just watch the movie. I doubt Toriyama is even going to acknowledge the existence of the remakes. I think that Toriyama is just going to say, Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, the movies happened, and then Universe 6 happens, and then the anime something or other. And I think that's pretty much the best decision he could possibly make when it comes to these retellings.